What's up, family? I'm live. I'm a little late, than my normal time I get on here, but better late than never. I just wanted to tap on here, get on here and tap in real quick with the family. I'm a little tired and sluggish. I've been running a lot of overtime at my job. It got me feeling a little tired, but I'm here, so I got a couple stories I want to talk about, you know what I mean? And hope everyone out there is having a good weekend, a safe weekend, you know. Um, and staying safe out there, But the first thing I want to get into, the first matter at hand, I'm not gonna be on here too long, family, And if you're new to the channel, make sure you like and subscribe, and even leave a comment. So yeah, I'm not gonna be on here too long. I just wanted to, tap in real quick with the family because I said yesterday I was going live. So when I say I'm going live, I like to, make good on that. Even if I'm tired, I always try to come through for the family. I'm feeling a little tired though, like I said, but yeah, it don't stop because right after I'm done here, with this live stream, I'm gonna go get a little workout in, you know what I mean? And I'm gonna start posting up some workouts and stuff too for the family. I don't know if any of the family, get into working out, but I do, and I'm gonna start, putting up, some healthier, food options that I'm, eating now because I'm getting on a more, health conscious, eating tip. I always had the working out part down pat, but I'm starting to, get a little more conscious on, eating whole foods instead of, like over processed foods like sodas and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I'm starting to, push those things away and starting to eat better. So yeah, I'm gonna start sharing that aspect with the family too. But I'm gonna get right into it and like, comment, and subscribe. And here we have it, family. This is an old video too, but I just brought this up, because I'm always as of late, putting out videos where there's white supremacists, being teachers in these schools and the miseducation system, and you got these teachers, teaching black youth and they ain't got no business even in the classroom, let alone teaching black youth. This is why, I'm more in favor of black people, black folks, teaching our kids, homeschooling our kids if we can, but I know everybody can't do that, but it's a lot of nonsense and confusion going on, nowadays as far as, these white supremacist school teachers, teaching miseducation and just doing a bunch of nonsense, regarding black kids in the schools. And I even put out something. I don't know if the family seen it, a video a few days ago where they trying to teach Charlie Kirk curriculum in the schools. This is a bunch of nonsense, you know what I mean? So I got the audio and the video of a teacher down there in Florida, who got exposed a few years back for being an undercover white supremacist, you know what I mean? And I see a lot of, anti-black activity in terms of, white teachers down there in the Florida school district. So we got to keep our eyes on that aspect. Let's get right into it, family. Fair use.
A social studies teacher at a Florida middle school has been taken out of the classroom because administrators learned that she had a side job as the host of a white supremacist podcast. Sarah Seidner has the story.
25-year-old Diana Volitich had one job, teaching social studies to middle school students at this Florida public school. On her off time, she had another.
See, I don't want, any of the family to get it misconstrued. We got a lot of white supremacists, white supremacists, what I'm trying to say, they aren't just, people running around, with Klan hoods and, running around with the Ku Klux Klan. That's the straight, forward white supremacists. You got a lot of white supremacists that sit on, these juries that are judges, teaching kids in the classroom, that's on the PTA board, the regular people that you come in contact day to day, even if they seem cool, they might be undercover white supremacists, you know what I mean? So don't think just because, white folks are cool with you, or even because the white folks might be laying black, and, even in a sexual relationship with a black person, that don't mean that they still ain't got, racist white supremacist views about black people. You know what I mean? Some black folks get the game twisted in that regard, thinking that just because a white person is, friendly and, that ain't being, straightforward with the white supremacy, that they ain't white supremacists, and never get that misconstrued, family.
their passion, sharing white supremacist ideals and anti-Semitic conspiracy theories on a public social media website, including her own podcast under the Russian pseudonym Tiana Dolokhov.
So many other researchers have already looked into this, and that's just the way it is. There are races that have higher IQs than others.
She also shared her views on Twitter under the same pseudonym, saying things like,
and that high IQ stuff, white people, being that's something that we see a common theme of with these white supremacists, them trying to point to, black people, which is a misnomer, trying to point to this false narrative of black people, having low IQs and they the only ones that got the high IQs when, we with that black FBA mindset, we know better than that because a lot of the inventions and things that were created out of America were made by foundational black Americans and stolen by white folks. But let's continue.
It isn't supremacist or hateful to prefer your own people over others. And America's education system is designed to enable victimization when teachers are forced to learn about institutional racism and prove it's real when it isn't. After the
She said institutional racism ain't real. Oh my God. Institutional racism, is everywhere. I report a lot of this nonsense on the channel. Black folks going for home loans with the same qualifications as a white person, and even more qualifications as a white person. The black person gets denied, black people being targeted by race soldiers left and right. It's just a lot of nonsense, as far as, institutional racism, you know what I mean? That's why I expose it so much, because it's ingrained in every area of activity over here in American society. You know what I mean? Even on, films, there's a lot of schools and big institutions still named after white supremacists. So how the hell ain't there no institutional racism, white supremacy? These, white supremacists, they love to, put out the false narrative that there ain't no white supremacy, and they put that false narrative out there to get you to take your eyes off of white supremacy, because if you ain't focused on white supremacy, they know you for sure as hell ain't going to address it.
A myriad of tweets and comments were first reported by the Huffington Post. The publication shared what they found with the Citrus County School District. The district has removed Volitich from the classroom pending an investigation. In a statement through an attorney,
and what they did with this degenerate white supremacist teacher, they just put her on administrative leave. They ain't even fire her. She quit herself, once she got exposed, from me doing my little homework and due diligence. So, these school districts and things like that, they all complicit in the white supremacy as well. You know what I mean? That's why I said, black folks, if you got the ability to do so, just homeschool your kids. It's a better atmosphere. You can learn your kids on what you want them to be brought up in and really edify them with stuff that could benefit their life. The school system, I call it the miseducation system. It's just, setting our youth up. It's basically the school to prison pipeline and things like that, setting our, kids up to be locked up in all actuality, to keep it all the way real. You know what I mean? But let's continue.
Volitich denies being racist or anti-Semitic, saying her comments online were all political satire and an attempt to get more followers. None of the statements released about my being a white nationalist or white supremacist have any truth to them, nor are my political beliefs injected into my teaching of social studies curriculum. But she did admit at least one parent complained about her political bias in class.
I've had a couple instances where, parents were concerned. I had one at the beginning of this year who emailed the principal over my head and basically, told her, I'm worried that your teacher is she's injecting political bias into her teaching. And the principal came to me and she was like, I'm not worried. Should I be worried? And I'm like, no. And she believed me and she backed off.
Another parent, Meredith Blakely, says her daughter attended Miss Volitich's class.
On a personal level, I'm outraged that, people in 2018 still think this way.
Blakely's daughter told her she remembered a comment by Volitich that made a mixed.
But I want y'all to keep in mind something, family. I said there's, a couple different white supremacists. You got the loud, outspoken white supremacists, that straight, let you know what it is, that run around, and spew their anti-black racism. And you got the white supremacists that are on the PTA boards, teachers in schools, such as the one we talking about right now. But the thing is, both of them get on code to, practice white supremacy against black folks. You know what I mean? And this lady that's talking about the talk, she's one of the quiet white supremacists, but they all get on code against us, you know. So don't misconstrue the two, and don't think just because a white person, you know, seems to be cool that they still couldn't have racist white supremacist views on things. And some white people even, you know, white supremacists even lay black, you know, but they still got racist white supremacist views on things. But let's continue.
Race child in class uncomfortable.
She believes she heard a comment from a teacher where she was saying that during segregation they had separate water fountains, and the teacher somewhat alluded to that in the teacher's opinion it would be okay if that was the way that it was today.
But Blakely says she strongly believes in due process and the First Amendment, and that she will wait to see what happens with the investigation into the teacher.
Listen, so on one hand, that parent is saying that she's not with, you know, no racism, but she's saying that she's gonna wait for due process, this, that, or the other. She'll wait to see what comes of it. You know, what the hell you gotta wait to see? The teacher was practicing white supremacy. It's blatant. It's right there up in your face. That's why I say, you know, there's white supremacists, undercover white supremacists, and loud, outspoken white supremacists, but they all get on code, you know, against us.
Before she passes judgment on whether or not that teacher should be fired. She did say, though, that this is a wake-up call to parents, that they should teach their strong values in the home as well. And she says she's teaching her daughter about inclusion and acceptance.
She said that they should teach strong values in the home. You know, I'm thinking that she talking about teach white supremacy in the home. You know, truth be told, that, you know, parent that just, you know, was talking. And as far as, you know, her saying she teaches inclusion, you know what I mean? That's just the, you know, to throw you off of your square, to make you think that, you know, she ain't a racist white supremacist as well. She just, you know, that parent was one of the, you know, quiet white supremacists. You know, that's just like those white supremacists that call up to Brother Tariq Nasheed's show, and you know, they on this, you know, we all bleed red. Can't we all, you know, just come together and get along? You know, it's about peace and love. And then when you ask them, you know, how did George Floyd die? Well, you know, he had fentanyl, dude. You know, he died of, you know, fentanyl when we all seen a foot on the neck. You know, that's a bunch of nonsense. And I just wanted to, you know, put some light and awareness on. You know, we got a lot of teachers, a lot of white supremacist teachers running around in the miseducation system, family. So we got to keep our eyes on that aspect. We're moving right along. What else did I want to touch on? Yeah, this one is crazy right here, family, that we're going to get into. It's a black business allegedly, you know, scamming black. It's a black business that's supposed to cater to, you know, getting black business owners in the hair care business, you know, getting their businesses running and off the ground, based out of Atlanta. And allegedly, you know, and this brother's actually of the lineage, you know, that owns this, you know, hair care institute. And what they do is, you know, they come out to your business. If you're trying to start a hair care business, they put all the products, you know, such as, you know, whatever you need, hair weave, whatever, you know, they stock your store up, and they supposed to get it running. But, you know, this brother unfortunately is of the lineage, and, you know, he's allegedly out here, you know, scamming black people, you know. And that's a bunch of nonsense, because you know, the trials and tribulations that, you know, foundational black Americans have in even making a business, you know what I mean? Now, there is some, you know, FBAs that allegedly, you know, have been scam bombed, but you got some, you know, black immigrants as well alleging that they've been scam bombed, you know. But I just want to put light and awareness on it, you know what I mean? To let none of the family know that, you know, this could, you know, this brother could be very well be doing this, you know, because I don't believe all of them people's, you know, lying on the brother. You know, he damn sure doing something that ain't right in his act. And that's a bunch of nonsense, because, you know, the trials and tribulations that foundational black Americans have to go through to even create a business. And, you know, especially when you're getting in that hair care business, because that's dominated and controlled by the Korean, you know. And that's the kind of markets that we need to get in, because a lot of our people buy them hair care products, you know, when it's the Asians that capitalize off of it. So long story short, this brother's supposed to be, you know, helping people with their stores, like when they're a new business, you know, trying to get up and running. He puts the products in there, launches, you know, their grand opening and things like that. And a lot of people saying that he ain't never coming through with the products, you know. They're waiting 1-2 years, you know, and still he ain't making good on, you know, coming to the store, you know. And a lot of them, have fallen off, unfortunately, behind this brother. I believe his name is something Robinson, but I could be wrong. But it's going to say it, in the video that I'm about to play. But I just wanted to put some light and awareness on this. Let me let this commercial play so I don't get copyrighted, family. And that's a market that we as foundational Black Americans need to be taking over, the hair care business, because that's, we patronize, our people patronize that a lot, and the Asians got that market sold up. So if we can, break ground into that, that's just more revenue for the family. And let's get into it. Fair use.
Business accused of preying on Black people has a choice: stop doing business or pay the state nearly $2.2 million. This follows a year-long 11 Alive news investigation by Rebecca Lindstrom. She joins us now with more on the Attorney General's order. Rebecca.
Dan, we have talked with dozens of people across the country who say they paid Beauty Supply Institute thousands of dollars to help them get their store started.
That's the name of the company. It's based out of Georgia, family, but it's all around. They operate in a couple states, but it's she just said it. I forget the name of it.
Them get their store started, but they were left with empty shelves and a lot of Institute thousands of dollars to.
It's called Beauty Supply Institute, family.
Help them get their store started, but they were left with empty shelves and a lot of debt. People filed for bankruptcy and lost homes. We shared all of these complaints with the Attorney General's office, and we're still waiting to get clarification on some of the details, but it looks like BSI's owner, Devin Robinson, has agreed to stop doing business.
The brother who owns his name is Devin Robinson.
Business in Georgia. Now, if he breaks that agreement, he will owe the state, as you said, more than $2 million, money that could be used to reimburse the state for its investigation, as well as restitution to some of his former clients. Here is one of the first stories we aired explaining the accusations against BSI. This is supposed to be a beauty supply store. Even though Pauline McLaurin signed the lease 10 months ago, the shelving sits unassembled on the floor and there are no products to sell.
Once you have all the product and all the inventory, they come out within 2-3 days, they build everything and they put everything how it should be displayed.
Paul McLaurin is referring to BSI, Beauty Supply Institute, a company headquartered here in Atlanta. The company promotes.
And I like to see more. That's why I wanted to expose this, because I like to see more brothers and sisters, operating in the hair care business, but what I mean, because, a lot of our people consume them hair care products, and it's, the Korean people, capitalizing off of it. And, that money don't circulate in our community. They take that money, back to their society without giving a damn to our society. All they do is, profit, come up off of our society and then look down upon our people. You go into their stores, you're not treated, with proper service. They think you're going to steal. They constantly watching you. And that's a market for our people to, tap into. We got to start controlling every facet of our society as foundational Black Americans. Everything we need, it should be a foundational Black American brother and sister, in that particular industry, catering to our people. You know what I mean? Because other people don't give a damn about, our people. So, we got to, start making good on our people, and that's how we get our collective leg up, by supporting our own businesses and, having businesses that cater to our people, so this Devin Robinson, whatever he is, whatever his name is, he's on a bunch of nonsense, finessing our people, because, he's of the lineage, you know what I mean? And this kind of stuff must be exposed, because, you sitting up there, fraud and Black folks, and it's hard for us to make it. We got a lot of, hurdles and, things to jump through just to make it, so Black folks that's really trying to, create their own business, and you sitting there, and not making good on, coming through for them, that's a bunch of nonsense.
Black business ownership, making dreams a reality by helping clients get their store open from start to finish.
I can invest into this person that has all the knowledge, has all the connections.
But 3 years after McLaurin signed the contract, she is stuck paying rent on a store in Florida that is missing the actual products.
And when you first start a business, you can't wait around a couple years, to get products in there, because, that's crucial that you start, you got to have money coming in, right off the bat, or you got to have something saved up, because they say most new businesses go out of business within a year to 6 months. That's why a lot of these, folks are filing for bankruptcy and things like that, because, they ain't able to do what they got to do behind this, doing this nonsense.
And she is not alone. How many of you have spent more than $50,000 trying to get your store open? Absolutely everybody. 11 Alive Investigates talked with 10 other people from across the country that signed contracts with BSI. They too are waiting on their products.
Basically, their responses to everything is, I don't know.
They give like vague answers. Nobody knows anything.
The distributor is on back order.
After calling, sending an email, and a visit to each of BSI's Metro Atlanta locations, the company founder, Devin Robinson, agreed to talk with us. But we were only allowed to record the audio of that conversation.
It is not all on us, and none of it is a nefarious act. Like, it's business.
Robinson told us his company simply grew too fast for demand.
How it ain't on you, and they contacted you for, your services. You know what I mean? You got to make good on that. Once a person, contacts you to get, whatever business or services you offer, you supposed to make good on that. You know what I mean?
We had to implement new technology. We just had to do certain things to be able to handle certain scale.
Robinson says it can take a year after a store is ready to get a team out to set it up with products. But these customers...
A year too long to wait for, especially a black business, to any business, but especially ours. There's so many hurdles and things they make us jump through to even get a black business. That's too long to wait around. You need to start making money ASAP. You know what I mean? They say most businesses, like I said, go out of business between 6 months and a year. That's too long to be waiting around up to a year.
Customers say that is too long.
I was borrowing money from right to left so I can keep my store. I was calling them every single day with tears, crying.
We're barely making it. I'm just being honest. We're barely making it.
We've exhausted everything with BSI.
We shared those frustrations with Robinson.
That is a very hurtful thing for me.
And for them.
Yeah.
McLaurin says it's incredibly hurtful to her.
And it's been devastating. I mean, honestly, I'm trying.
And this brother, I understand things come up, things happen, but keep people in the loop. And this brother, should be required to give back that money, that for making them people wait around, and lose out on business. So I just wanted to bring that, to the family, that there's, allegedly this black business, based out of Atlanta, the Beauty Supply Institute, finessing black folks who are, trying to get into the hair care market, and that'd be a great market for us to get into. I would love to see, more foundational black Americans, and black people in general too, getting into that business more, but especially our people, because it's dominated and controlled by the Koreans, and they don't give a damn about our people. They look down on our people. So, that's a market that I would like to see our people get into more. But moving right along. Here we go, family. This is crazy. I believe this is out of Texas. I don't know where in Texas, but it was two sisters, going into a store. One holds the door for the other sister, and I guess she wanted to hear a thank you for holding the door, and
quality and unbeatable.
The other sister didn't say, thank you. So I guess some kind of altercation or problem ensued, and one sister shot the other sister. You know what I mean? Now, I don't really like to touch on these stories because the white supremacists, love these stories of black people, doing other black people some type of harm so they could sit up and point to the false narrative of there being some, black on black crime, which it ain't. Every society, got things that go on amongst their people. But I just, wanted to put some light and awareness on this, because if you ask me, all of that could have been avoided. Now, two sisters' lives is lost, the one that got killed and the one doing the killing, and they were relatively young. And the unfortunate thing is the sister that got killed, she had a child with her. I don't know how old this child was, but hopefully the child wasn't too young where though he or she was traumatized, and I think a mental health might have played an aspect in this too, because anytime you let thank you or what somebody else is doing dictate your moves, that's could be mental health. You know what I mean? And we gotta start using our intelligence over emotions. With things. Not just fly off the handle. Half cocked and let our uh, spur of the moment decision, affect the entirety of our life. That's why I say mental health might have played a, role in this as well, because, someone not saying, thank you or, exercising manners. Most people nowadays don't got manners, regardless of, this crosses, the color lines and color barriers. Most people ain't, uh, got manners, and it's sad, but it's it's a part of society. I remember when I was growing up, you was taught that on the home front to have manners and be respectful to people. But nowadays, a lot of people, don't got manners and things like that. So we can't let other people's actions, dictate and determine ours. You know what I mean? And I think we got to start exercising a little bit more, restraint. Especially when it comes to our people, keep that smoke for the racist white supremacists. You know what I mean? We got to start being a little bit more patient and kind to our people, because our people are we've struggled a lot, we've endured a lot, and still we rise as foundational Black Americans. So we just got to exercise a little bit more patience. But a lot of FBAs are getting all cold, so I want to put that out there as well. But this is just an unfortunate story that I wanted to share. The headlines caught me. A sister shoots another sister over, not saying thank you. And I got the audio and the video of this, and we're going to walk through and talk about it, family. Fair use.
Killed outside a Dallas PetSmart after getting upset
Dallas,
at a woman
Dallas,
for not
Texas,
saying thank you.
Court documents say the victim, Cecilia Simpson, was shot several times after the dispute escalated into a parking lot fight. Peyton Yeager has more on the story tonight.
The family of 41-year-old Cecilia Simpson sent Fox 4 News these photos of the Duncanville mother of two. Friends and old classmates from Duncanville ISD also mourning the loss. According to an arrest warrant affidavit, Simpson was shot and killed after becoming upset because a woman she held the door open for didn't say thank you. The argument started at the store Five Below Tuesday and then spilled over to the PetSmart in the same South Oak Cliff shopping center off Wheatland Road. Investigators say.
Now with me, I go into stores all the time. I'm holding the door for people. Sometimes they say thank you, sometimes they don't, but I don't let that dictate my behavior, because I'm gonna keep on being me, regardless. And I'm not gonna be going out of my way to be kind to people that don't aren't respectful of that. But I try to be kind and stuff. But if somebody don't say thank you, or that's not going dictate me to get into an altercation. I might be like, damn, you could have said thank you or something like that. But as to go as far as to shoot somebody over that, we got to use a little bit more common sense and exercise restraint, especially dealing with our people. You know what I mean? Because like I said, we came through a lot, we've endured a lot, and still we rise. And we just gotta keep that smoke. We gotta turn that smoke on the white supremacists, not on our own people. You know what I mean? And like I said, I don't really like to touch on these stories because it gets touchy, and the white supremacists, they love to play on that and point to some false narrative of there being black on black crime. But I just wanted to put some light and awareness on it, because it's sad all the way around for the person, especially the sister that lost her life, and her child was there. And then the other young sister, she lost her life too, one to the grave, one to the jail system. So either way, the white supremacist is winning off of that.
A 22-year-old Kiana Hampton followed Simpson and her daughter into the PetSmart. Employees there asked them to leave.
The screaming first caught my attention.
Fox 4 spoke to a 27-year-old ER nurse who walked out of the PetSmart as the two women were arguing in the parking lot.
The lady who was the shooter was still instigating, I guess, an argument or a fight or something. But the mom and daughter tried to get in their car and de-escalate the situation, but the lady wasn't having it.
According to the affidavit, Hampton later confirmed.
See, the shooter should have just let that sister go. You know what I mean? She trying to get in the car, defuse it, and she kept on antagonizing the situation. You know what I mean? But let's continue.
Two detectives, she engaged in the verbal dispute entering the PetSmart twice and continuing the argument, throwing the drink bottle at Simpson's car when she was about to leave, and engaging in a physical altercation with her. That's when police say Hampton pulled out a gun and shot Simpson 3 times. Multiple nurses rushed to perform CPR, Simpson's daughter by her mom's side, while also on the phone with 911.
If I could just hug that daughter, like, I just feel so bad for her, and I just want her to know that I did everything I could. Those other people did everything they could.
Now, the suspect, Hampton, remains here at the Dallas County Jail. She does face...
Yeah, that's a sad story. R.I.P. to that sister, and hopefully her young daughter ain't traumatized, you know. Hopefully she wasn't, you know, a real young, you know, to have to witness, you know, the unaliving of her mother right in front of her, you know what I mean? But that's a bunch of nonsense, and R.I.P. to that sister. But moving right along, this is a crazy one right here. I wanted to, you know, this came on my news feed, family, so I was like, let me talk about this. This is a crazy one right here. This is a case of I'm white, not say so, if I've ever seen one. You know, here we have it, a black school bus driver, and all of the parents say she's a pretty good school bus driver. She gets fired, and you never guess what she got fired for, family. She gets fired for, you know, fist pumping the kids, you know, and that's a bunch of nonsense. You know what I mean? Now that school bus company is saying that it wasn't a part of the protocol or how they do things and things like that. But you could bet your last damn dollar that if it was a white person, you know, fist pumping, you know, every kid on the bus and recording it and putting it on social media. I guess they saying they didn't want it on social media or some bogus claim they gave, you know, to practice white supremacy and say I'm white, not say so. You know, but if it was a white school bus driver, you know, fist pumping kids and putting it on social media, they wouldn't have been fired. You know, this sister was a good bus driver. You know, all the parents loved her. She, you know, did good at her job, and she even liked her job. She said she really took, you know, to heart her job, and, you know, loved every one of them kids. And they fired this sister for putting it on, you know, social media, fist pumping, whatever bogus narrative they gave to practice white supremacy. But you could bet your last damn dollar that they wouldn't have did that if that sister was, you know, white. But I got the audio and the video of this nonsense of, you know, this sister, you know, being fired from her job as a school bus driver for absolutely nothing at all. This is 100% race-based, if you ask me.
Bus driver says she was forced to resign from her position after filming what she and parents call a harmless, fun video of her interacting with her bus drivers. Our Markeisha Jackson has more.
Jessica Flowers says
this type of BS really gets me mad because I know if it was a Brad or Becky, they wouldn't have been fired for, you know, fist pumping, you know, children and playing with the kids and, you know, putting it on social media. This was done because our sister was black.
she loved her job as a bus driver and had begun to love the relationships she built with the students, relationships that have been cut short. This is Jessica Flowers, a mother herself. She says she's always had a heart for helping the youth. She previously worked in childcare before deciding.
And you don't need to fire people, you know, that want to work around the youth and that are good, you know, especially around our black youth. We should have more people like that in the school district and, you know, running buses, you know, and in these particular industries, you know, revolving around kids. You know, we need to push the damn white supremacists out and have more people like this sister in there, you know, but in a white supremacist system, they don't want that going down. You know what I mean?
She wanted a career change.
I did everything that I needed to do to, you know, become a Chesapeake Public School bus driver.
One of her routes picked up Tara Marx's middle schooler. She says when Jessica became the bus driver, it was a welcome change.
It was a breath of fresh air. It was night and day.
She says that's all thanks to...
This sister said the bus driver was a breath of fresh air, so you know they most likely had other bus drivers in there that didn't give a damn, you know, dropping the kids off late, didn't care, you know, just were there for a paycheck. And this sister really valued her job. You don't let a person like that go. You're supposed to be, you know, giving this kind of a person a raise and wanting to, you know, keep them in that position. You know what I mean?
To Jessica going above and beyond in her role, something they haven't had in the past.
Chesapeake City Schools have had a challenge with having consistency with bus drivers.
But Jessica brought relief and established a great rapport with the children. She says she strived to make every child feel special when they stepped on her bus.
So I decided to.
And I for damn sure believe our sister tried to make every child feel special because black women, they got that mothering, nurturing aspect to them to where though they want to take care and nurture everybody, especially the youth. So this sister was, just doing her job and just being that loving black woman, you know what I mean? And she ain't do not a damn thing wrong. The thing was that, the racist white supremacists didn't like that because like I said, you could bet your last damn dollar that if that was Bob or Becky, that for sure as hell wouldn't have happened. They would have still been, having their job and, operating as normal protocol. This was done because our sister was black.
To do a handshake.
She and each student came up with a different handshake, and last week, with parents' permission, she decided to record this video and post it on social media.
In this day and age, you see those types of videos go viral and you see the love and the dedication.
Chesapeake schools did not see it that way. Flowers says the school division.
She's just showing love to the kids. She ain't doing not a damn thing wrong. These days, you see, unfortunate news of people harming kids that are supposed to be in, roles of leadership like school bus drivers, teachers, a bunch of nonsense, and practicing anti-black racism. This, sister was just, showing love and, care, nurturing to the kids and, they let her go. That's a bunch of nonsense. This sister needs to, seek out good legal representation because she got a hefty lawsuit on her hands. Because if you ask me, she was let go for not a damn thing. If the role was reversed and that was a white person, that wouldn't have happened.
Division told her she violated a zero-tolerance social media policy that she says she wasn't even aware of, and she was told she could resign or get fired. Chesapeake Public Schools wouldn't explain the policy to us, citing personnel matters.
Policies are very important, but so is common sense.
The white supremacists don't follow no damn policies. They make and break rules as they please. They make them to fit their discretion. You know what I mean?
And compassion.
Both are hopeful this can lead to a policy change. Markeisha Jackson, 10 on your side.
Former
Yeah, that's a case of I might not say so, but hopefully that sister schools the pants off of that school bus company because she shouldn't have been fired. They should have been trying to keep her, as a long-standing employee. She should be given raises. These are the kind of people you want working, around kids, But let's continue. All right, this is an unfortunate story, family, that I wanted to touch on. I was seeing it, it came across my timeline, my news feed of a young sister from Philly. She went missing, and she went in to do a shift, didn't even complete her whole shift, and her family saying that, this ain't like this sister to just be going missing without contacting somebody, from the family, and that ain't something we as black folks do is just, go missing. So, I hope it ain't, foul play involved, but you never know. Hopefully our sister's all right and just, returns home. I just wanted to put some, light and awareness on it because a lot of times black people go missing, especially black women, and they never get, news coverage and, the spotlight ain't never put on them. You know what I mean? When black folks go missing, especially black women, the news media, tried to sweep it under the rug. Black folks die mysteriously. All of these brothers hanging from trees, and they just, try to write it off as, suicide when it's, other things that play like systematic racism, white supremacy, so that's why I always like to, put light and awareness on this, and we just had not too long ago in Baltimore, a young sister was unalived by a no good Latino tether who was in the country illegally. So it's just a lot of nonsense going on nowadays, regarding our people, foundational black Americans. So I just wanted to, put some light and awareness, and hopefully this sister, was brought back home, but from the news, they are out there, actually searching for this sister, putting the boots to the ground. So that's good because more often than not, especially when black people go missing, it never gains, widespread news media coverage, and the cops really don't even do their job, I don't feel, when it comes to solving some of these black missing persons cases. They sweep them under the rug, you know what I mean? Black people, especially black women, go missing disproportionately, without a trace, and somebody knows something about it. They just don't give a damn. Let me find that story, family. I think this is it.
Jacqueline,
yeah, this is it. Fair use, fair use.
And her family tells me that they are very worried tonight. Now, her family has put up posters outside of her place of work. This is where she was last seen on Saturday. The family is hoping.
She went in for a shift. She ain't even finished her shift. She left abruptly, and nobody's heard from her since Saturday. And they say our sister was, her name is Dekai or something like that, Scott, and she went missing, and they say that she was receiving like threatening phone calls from somebody, and they don't know like who this person was. But my thing is, they tried to track her phone and everything to see if that let them, like the phones and everything had been turned off, and this unfortunately got foul play written all over it. I don't want to say that. Hopefully our sister comes home, but Black people, we just don't go, missing like this. Something definitely for sure as hell happened to our sister, and she was receiving, threatening phone calls. They need to go down that hole and see where it takes them. You know what I mean? The threatening phone calls. But let's continue.
Somebody will see this and come forward.
Please come home. I'm so scared and I love you. Please come home.
A heartbreaking plea from Kim Matthews. She says her 23-year-old daughter, Kata Scott, went missing Saturday night and she hasn't heard from her since.
Something is off. It's out of place. She would never do something like this. So I don't know what's going on.
Kim says she last saw her daughter October 4th, leaving the house around 9:50 for an overnight shift.
Something I want to put in there, family, like when you out and about, watch out, for any suspicious activity, look out for your fellow brother or sister, you know what I mean? And, be aware, like I always say, because to be aware is to be alive, and, if you're not, you might want to take up self-defense if you, things just to protect yourself, just take little, proactive, steps to protect yourself and make sure your family is all right. If you don't talk to your family every day, make sure you call them and tap in just to know that everything is right and exact.
At a nearby assisted living facility. Police say Kata arrived at work around 10 p.m. but disappeared shortly after, never finishing her shift.
We're trying to piece it together. She went into a job for a normal shift and she didn't finish the shift and come home. So that's when the problem started.
And that don't even sound right, going into a shift and, never coming home. Something damn sure don't sound right with that. Hopefully our sister just comes home. They need to go down the rabbit hole and see where it takes them as to who was giving her them threatening phone calls, what that was about. I think that will, lead them in the right direction as to finding our sister, if they go down, that route of things.
And that's where we're at right now, trying to figure out what's going on, where she's at.
Kata's car was found in the nursing home parking lot, but investigators say there's no security cameras on site to fill in the details. Kim says Kata left with her car keys, iPad, iPhone, and iWatch.
No security cameras, places like that are even supposed to have security cameras, for the sake of, the elderly. She was working at a nursing center, they should have had, should be liable for that, like having cameras around, to surveil the premises, the parking lot and things of that nature.
And she provided police with the serial numbers. But since her phone was shut off, investigators say they can't track down her current location.
What's troubling about this case is, number one, you have a 23-year-old young lady who has completely disappeared. We have no cell phone activity or social media activity, and she's not reached out to family or friends.
What's more concerning is police say prior to Kata's disappearance, she reported being harassed by someone through the phone. But police and family say they...
See, we need to find out who was she being harassed by, what that was about, because I feel that'll lead them in the right direction. The investigators, the authorities.
They don't know who it is.
Any information, no matter how small, it would be of great use to detectives investigating this case.
Police have used canine units to search the surrounding area. They've also interviewed those closest to Scott and examined her social media accounts for clues. Kim says Kata is a beauty queen and began working only 2 weeks ago at the facility to help pay for college courses. She said,
"That's a pretty young sister. Hopefully, she comes home to her family, and everything's, all right with her, you know what I mean? Because her family, that ain't, like her, that you just go missing. Nobody doesn't keep in contact with at least their mom and their dad, like, even if you don't want to talk to people, at least you're going to stay in contact with your parents. So some people, want to go under the grid, something gets to them and they're like, hell, I just don't want to speak to nobody. I want to go on my shell, but at least you're going to stay in contact with your mom and your dad, that much, everybody's going to do that pretty much.
Says she just wants her daughter to come home.
I'm nervous. I just want my daughter to come back home.
Now, police say Keita was last seen dressed in all black. They say that she is very big and active on social media, which is why they are going through her social media accounts. And I did ask her mom if she knows of anybody who may be out to harm her daughter. Her mom tells me she does not. Reporting live in Chestnut Hill, Kelsey Kushner, NBC 10 News.
Yeah, hopefully our sister Kata Scott, pops up safe, safe and all right, and ain't nothing, wrong with her, and she didn't meet some kind of foul play. I just wanted to do my part on putting some light and awareness on our sister Kata Scott. Hopefully she returns home to her family safe and sound. So yeah, family, I'm about to hop off of here, and head on out, side to get a workout in, or I might head to the gym before it gets too late. But if you're new to the channel, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, because they always be trying to censor my videos because I'm talking about white supremacy and, dealing and, exposing these tethers and things like that. And, the algorithm tends to want to, suppress my content, true, black empowerment. They want to suppress that message, but they'll let, the white supremacists, spew their anti-black racism all day, every day. The algorithm pushes that kind of nonsense. So like and subscribe, family, and, have a safe and blessed weekend, and be safe and watch all your surroundings, because to be aware is to be alive. Peace.